Hi everyone, welcome to the Novel Podcast. Today I'm joined by a local legend in the merchandising business, a local businessman who started off with a £1,500 grant from the Prince's Trust and has built it into a multi-million pound business that trades across Europe and the US and internationally. He's a gentleman, he's well known on the Liverpool business scene, and delighted to be speaking to Andy Dwerryhouse. Andy, welcome.
Hey, it's great to be here, Andrew. It's great to be here, but I don't know about legend. You know what I mean? I still think like, I'm still working on the legend
30
part. So.
years, and we've just had your expo, Wild Thang.
Yeah, our 30th anniversary. Yeah, that was a big moment
in trade, which was amazing celebration.
Yeah, we tried to do it properly. I think 30 years is milestone moments that don't come around very often. 30 years, next one will be maybe 40, but yeah, we wanted to do it really properly, and we obviously really appreciate your support that you gave, Andrew, to be there with Vec and the robots, of course, because they brought something else. And, innovation was central to what we want to do as a theme, as well as ESG and promoting best practice.
And that's what I want to talk to you about is the ESG journey that you guys have been on.
Yeah.
But kind of today, you're an incredibly successful business. You employ 50 odds.
Yeah, 50 plus. Yeah.
You've invested in Bootle. I kind of got some of the story from your Sarah about the road widening and sort of the modifications to the building and all that.
Yeah.
But it started 30 years ago, Wild Thang, printing T-shirts in a back room.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. So obviously, as an idea, it was originally, I think, you maybe heard the story when you came in the evening, but it was started off with the support of the Prince's Trust, now the King's Trust. And it was started, that was the idea, that was, wouldn't it be a good idea to print some T-shirts? And this was originally with a school friend called Mark Zajac, and you should never forget that journey of who was with you at the start and through your journey, even if they're not with you now. That's really important to never forget all those people that help you, at each step. And that was it. We thought that would be a good idea. We'd read an article, I think, in the newspaper about the Prince's Trust, and we thought, why don't we apply for that? Because we're not doing anything else at the moment. So let's print some T-shirts. And then there was, talking about the, what maybe we should call it when we went to see them. They said, you've got to find a name. But maybe you could touch on that.
Go on, so Wild Thang, it was named after the song.
Well, yeah, but like all great names, we were told when we, from our mentor, Walter Yates, as we were doing that business plan with the Prince's Trust, now King's Trust, we were talking, he said, oh no, part of your business plan, you've got to do some market research, and you've got to think about a name, you know what I mean, that's going to kind of not necessarily make you stand out, but as soon as I thought and Mark as well, we want to say we want to do something different. So the research took place in the Yellow Pages. Remember that?
Yeah.
Do you remember the Yellow Pages?
Yellow Pages and Thompson's directory as well. You used to get when you didn't get the Yellow Pages, you got the blue Thompson's.
That's
one.
correct.
Yeah.
We were in both at one point advertising. And that was the market research. We were having a look through, screen printers, T-shirt printers. That was the listing. And we were like, gosh, everyone's just called
A screen printer
or T-shirt printer or Bob's or
A1 T-shirts
or this or or that, but none of them were like a brand, or none of them were really creative. And we thought, well, printing T-shirts is quite creative. Why is no one creative? And so we went away and think, well, right, we've got to think of it like a name, and you think of Virgin, and we were talking about, what are the brands that are beyond that? And Virgin was one, and that was quite controversial at the time. And so we were thinking. And then one night we'd gone out the pub, obviously, all great conversations start in the pub. Totally got to come up with this idea. And then we were walking home or wobbling home.
Because you'd gone the Falcon and Kirby or something. and then, yeah.
And so we wobbled home, and, we were singing Wild Thang, the song, and then we were like, I think that's it. And then if you listen to the song carefully, it sounds like Wild Thang. Yeah. So we added the A,
and that's a stroke of kind of marketing genius that it does stick in your head.
Well, I mean, I think, it stood us in good stead, even though we've had the question of why you call Wild Thing. Well, that's a good starting conversation, isn't it? I guess Richard Branson was probably asked many times himself, why have you called it Virgin? But it was to obviously stand out from the crowd and dare to be different.
You're coming up 10 years behind kind of Branson, I guess. It's
probably
matured by that point. He's got the record to use, because there's that kind of early journey of you guys. It does feel very similar to that kind of the documentaries on Branson and the early years when he was setting up.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, and literally we were like, when we started off, you're green as grass, aren't you? So
how old are you when you set up?
So I was 24, but it was probably 23. You know what I mean? When we started, when we said, oh yeah, that's what we're sort of going to do. And then we said, oh, well, you've got to do some research and, about those things. We've got to find some machinery and stuff like that. And then how are we going to fund it? And that's where the Prince's Trust came in. But as I said, that mentorship really went a long way to giving us, creating the foundations. And at any point, Walter could have said, oh, that's a bit of a strange name. You can't call yourself that. So I'll be forever grateful he went with it, you know what I mean? And he said, that's unusual, you know what I mean? Yeah. But once we'd explained that we wanted to do something different, he sort of understood that. And he said, well, give it a go,
So I want to come back to Walter, because you mentor, you've given back to the King's Trust.
Yeah.
So I want to get into that. But a lot of young people kind of starting up businesses. Where did those first sales come from? How did you go from, okay, we're going to print T-shirts? Where did the creativity come from for the graphic design? And how did you go about selling? What was your first sale?
I can't remember the very first sale. Originally we thought like, oh yeah, we'll print some T-shirts and we'll sell them as well. But then after a while thinking, getting into, fashion and selling them, that's it. That's even more. So you're not
going to gigs or concerts and out the back of a car boots?
Yeah. But I mean, the first one was like, well, we've got the machinery. We've got the printing gear. People need T-shirts with brand on, and we had a phone and we had a Yellow Pages. And, you start like, oh yeah, well, we're going to have to get out there and meet some people, aren't they? Step by step. And like, you should always start off with the people that so through family and friends and stuff like that, that's where it can start, isn't it? And that's where it always should, but your sort of network, even though we didn't know many people. And I think definitely some of our early orders will have been for someone we knew in a band maybe as well. Yeah. Like, as you said, like, I can't remember exactly who, but that's where it starts. And then, but that was above my dad's business, which I think you want to touch on as well.
Yeah, Andrew, yeah. So your dad had a small engineering firm? And
he did, yeah, in Knowsley Industrial Estate. But I'd been his Saturday lad going back years, because he was in business for 25 years, which is back then even then it's a very, very long time. And, I saw firsthand, and I was lucky to be his Saturday lad, that taught me all those life lessons that stood me in good stead. At the time, you don't know it, so your environment is part of creating that, I guess gives you those opportunities or those life skills about work ethic, I guess, like, getting outside your comfort zone, and also doing things to a high standard. And also
in engineering, machine and stuff in engineering, there's no margin for error. It's tight margins, and if something scraps,
it was hydraulic as well, right, so okay. It was like, engineering on that side. So it was like, physical but obviously very, very technical at the same time. But like, I got to see firsthand on that. And my dad, like, he was, he taught me just watching him. And that's sometimes what you've got to do, is watch the other person, isn't it? Like, how they deal with things, and you'll get that in your brain. It'll be there for use maybe in the future, but definitely those life lessons, because it was 11 or 12. And like, a lot of that, I saw how he treated people, which was always with kindness and respect. And that definitely embedded me. So I became the best tea maker ever. And best brusher up as well. We already touched on that. Yeah. You can either be a good brusher up or a bad brusher up. And I reckon the best.
The sign of a good factory is if it's clean and
but that's, I think that goes for anything. You can either plan to do something to just okay or mediocre, but that's not going to get you the things maybe you want to achieve in your life. You've got to set the tone of where you want to be and go.
Really interesting that point you make about kind of observing your dad at 11. And we were talking recently about something. It's something that's dawned on me in the last couple of years. Is there's so many behaviours that were patterns that I observed when I was 21 our chief exec indulged in, and I didn't understand why you behaved the way you behaved at the time or the decisions that were made. But as you get older and you kind of progress yourself, you look back and go, "Oh Christ, I understood where that." You start hearing your own voice saying things that you heard 20 years ago, or you see problems coming up when you present behaviours that you'd patterned and you didn't know it at the time, but it's stuck in your memory as to how to deal with the situation or a problem.
So I think my dad very kindly gave us a space above his company was called Northwest Hydraulics, but he gave us a space above his workshop as our first premises. And he said it was on the proviso that you paint it and you do it up. So
he's going to charge you for dilaps when you vacate as well.
So we did a good job, but it took about 3 or 4 months. So we weren't doing much. That's what we were doing. We were focused on creating a good environment. So he painted it all, made it all good. And you know what? Those early days of colours. That orange was in there, even though it wasn't in the actual the logo until later on.
Wow.
But the way those things, because it was black and white, even though the Wild Thing logo is always that kind of like that splash or kind of graffiti that's been there from the very, very, very start. We only color coordinate it quite a few years later and decided, we've got to have for color. So I'll be ever thankful. But we were there, so we did that, and we started doing that. We got the phone installed. There were no computers, by the way, then, and we started making some footballs.
Great phone or
we
something.
We started doing some work locally and getting out there and speaking to people, and meeting some people. And throughout that period, we decided we're gonna do up that van and we're gonna spray it. I don't know if you've ever seen the photos.
I've not seen the photos of the van. Go on,
it looks like the Scooby-Doo one a little
bit.
So
okay.
again,
that's very on brand for you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think again, that's the
old Ford Transit or something.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. But by the time it was finished, everyone was like, you could not miss it. And again, standing out from the crowd, daring to be different, and people are saying, that's either amazing or that's crazy. But aren't all the best ideas a little bit crazy sometimes? But people remember it still to this day. And they said, oh, you're those people that used to have that purple van with the what do you call it? So that was early days, but that was a bit of time spent where we weren't necessarily thinking about growing the business. We were just thinking, we'll do that. That'll make it look better. That may improve. But that was all the branding. That was the start of what to come. And I think we stayed in my dad's premises for about 6 months. So all that work of doing it all. So not long, because and we moved into the city centre because we'd got a few good orders, but then we were like, well, this space is a bit limited. And by the way, you've got to walk through my dad's
machine shop, swarf and grease and dust
to get to us, you know what I mean, and stuff like that. And so you're thinking about image of what is perceptions. Does someone take yourself seriously if they have to?
Yeah. And
you start where you start, but then if you're thinking ahead, it's always that next step of progress. And I think, hey, that's what we've done over the past 30 years. Every year there haven't been any big leaps. I mean, been some bigger leaps, but every year, you get a little bit better. But there's always the next step. I mean, even today, after all them years, you're talking about we are, the biggest in the LCR. That's something to be proud of. But I think as us,
you're one of the biggest in the country as well. One of.
Well, one of, yeah. We're industry leading, yeah. And we're dealing internationally, but we've got real legs to become, a serious, very, very, very top of our game. Definitely in the UK and Europe, but maybe even globally. You've got to, we're at that point where, we can push beyond a different level because we've come so far. But no overnight success, as with all things, and step by step. And it hasn't been easy.
Everybody, all the overnight success, actually 10-year overnight successes. All of a sudden people get interested in you, but actually you've been 10 years before you really get comfort and traction. Today, you're a successful family business today, but you started off as two guys kind of in the back office of your dad's place. What was the journey there from kind of the start? So when did the growth kind of really happen? What was
that they're really important because they're the stepping stones, aren't they? And I think over our 30th, we got to tell that story in detail, which we haven't done before, really, because people think, oh yeah, you're this fabulous world-class company, but they don't really understand, the complete journey. So we'd moved into the city centre, Campbell Street, to this which is off Duke Street.
Yeah, I was going to say rope walks. Yeah.
So rope walks at
before the redevelopment.
Oh yeah, before. At that point, a lot of rope works was derelict.
Yeah.
It was a derelict part of town. Hanover Street, a lot of the buildings were like, you saw that they had potential. But
gorgeous old factory buildings and
all around there. So we were there at that point where it was really starting to.
So early 90s, late 90s.
Yeah, exactly. Well, 1996.
The Labour's just coming in.
Yeah. And, Cream was just around the corner there as well. But when we moved into town, there really were starting to things. I think the dark days of Liverpool have sort of ended, and there was a sense of
club scene
real change and optimism, of things changing for the better. And we thought maybe we can play a little bit of part of that. And I remember getting an order from Cream and thinking, we're going to the big time. We've made it. But then obviously we invested in some new machinery. It was a bigger premises on the ground floor. As we grew a little bit more, we knocked through the back because John Massey was our landlord at the moment. I'll be thankful for John Massey. He's no longer with us, but for giving that chance, because he sort of interviewed us for saying,
so you're landlord now, and is Massey building you're in now, or no? Back then.
No, back then in Campbell Street. And he was an interviewer saying, "Oh, what are you going to be doing in here?" Because obviously, and by the way, you'll have to paint it as well and keep it. So there we were, painting again, making it look good and everything. But he gave us a bit of an interview, and he was like, "Oh yeah, you're going to be printing t-shirts. Sounds good. Yeah, go for it, lads. As long as you pay the rate, rent, there'll never be a problem." which we did. And step by step, we were printing t-shirts, and we were getting more clients. Like I said, another one. When we were in the city centre, we really started to get that a little bit of traction because you've got that walk by. So again, moving from my dad's premises to there, we didn't have that previously.
You got shop fronts, you got a bit of football.
Got a bit of football. People, kind of walking past, going, "Oh, what's that Wild Thing?" You know what I mean? So that's really what, and that's where we started to grow. You know what I mean? Type thing. We got the signage on the outside, which again, the purple band was still there. And we started. And that sense of Bar was another one that was when we had Bar, because when that opened, I think that was Urban Splash, wasn't it? And that was another game changing moment, as in.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to Urban Splash, because it was
they're still going,
late 90s, 2008. Everything was Urban Splash development.
Yeah, and they were really ahead of the time. But yeah, things slowly, and then we was printing t-shirts, and then let's diversify. Let's go into embroidery. So we started doing.
So that's a natural progression. Slim fabrics and
natural
textiles.
Progression, but again, I think that was us thinking, kind of maybe ahead. That diversification, even those early days, it's one of the things that they teach you in business, isn't it? You've always got to think about what is that. But we weren't thinking. We were just thinking, oh, that seems like a good natural step. But what we saw in our business of branding, you were either screen printer or you were either an embroiderer.
Okay.
You're either one or the other. Very rarely were the two together, which was we thought was a bit strange. So at that point, it was me and Mark in Campbell Street, and then at that point, my brother Chris started doing some.
He's your ops director now.
Chris. Yeah, he's our operations director, but he was the earliest family member that sort of came into the business, and he started off doing a bit of this and doing a bit of that.
Was he on the sewing machine at this point, or?
No, he was not. He was on the screen printer.
Right,
you know what I mean? He was screen printing, you know what I mean? But he was in university at that time, actually. So he wanted to earn a little bit of extra money. But as it turns out, he thought, well, university isn't for me. And it seems like a good opportunity, because he saw, obviously we were growing and some good things were happening. And then we took on our first couple of employees, which was a big moment.
Yeah.
I'm allowed to mention them, because I'm not going to be able to mention all our team, unfortunately. I would if I could, but he was Graham Palambella, and he was a screen printer. So that really made a difference. So I was like, even though I still had to do a bit of screen printing, I was more like, oh yeah, well I'll just do the sales, and Chris, you can do that with Graham and continue that. And then one of the next employees was Liam McLaughlin. Both of those are still with us.
Wow.
And that is 20 plus years of being involved in the business. So I guess that. But Lee, she's our head of accounts and HR. So when we were with Walter, he said, you've got to be focused on the financial. So I'd been doing all our bookkeeping up to that point, because he made us, sent us on a course to do bookkeeping to be able to get the Prince's Trust loan.
Right.
And I think that really set the foundations. And my dad often talk about finances being the center of everything, which it is, isn't it? Any business can be as successful as they pretend to be, but without the finances or without those foundations, well, it's all for nothing. So
I guess it's tough in those early days of the line of work you're in, actually getting paid and chasing up invoices.
Yeah. I mean, but we weren't giving anyone credit, generally speaking. We were saying, it's money up front, or it's a deposit or that. And, over them years, we've had very low rates of, bad debt, which is, again, we've been careful of who we give credit to and really been on point in that, that chasing. The debtor's book, as you said, so important. But I was there before Lee came in. I did our accounts by, hand, by a ledger. I mean, again, that'll be
W.H. Smith's ledger paper.
That'll be alien to a lot of people, like the Yellow Pages, but going back that far, but it's still be in good stead. So I was our head of accounts, you know what I mean? And that is all attention to detail, because everyone's got to add up to do your VAT return and those other things. But but that was a game changer when Lee came, because she was like, oh yeah, we can do this on a computer, but a very early computer, because it had a green screen, if you remember.
The floppy disk on the side of the monitor.
Oh, yeah. So that. And so once she came in, I then sort of we bought some computers for the very first time. That seemed like a game changer, So
you're not doing graphic design on computer at this point, or anything?
Well, this was the next step, because again, computers and emails and the World Wide Web, that was only starting to happen, you know what I mean? So, but what I thought was a good computer at the time, it probably was, and I taught myself to become a graphic designer as well, because again, I knew that was going to be an important part of what we did as a company. I mean, again, traditionally, to be the agency or the graphic design, to be the screen printer, and to be the embroiderer. So it was again,
you're bringing it together,
bringing it together. You know what I mean? And also thinking ahead, and I guess because we were again, early adopters, it would be more difficult for those businesses that were already established to take on those new things that happen in the world, because a lot of people are scared, aren't they? Sometimes, or they say, "Oh no, it's not gonna mean anything." But change in the world is constant. So even if it ends up not being, a thing that really works for the future, you've got to go with it, haven't you? You've got to embrace it. Then a bit further down the line, and we're talking kind of early 2000s. My brother-in-law John Howarth. He came, who's now my brother-in-law. He wasn't my brother-in-law at the time. He came into the actual business, and again, he'd already had his own little business. But that's when we, that's when it was. He said he'd come and work, and things got better. Then my dad came to work for us.
That must have been weird
for a good while.
So what was your dad doing?
My dad he was our official maintenance guy, but he was a man wearing many hats, like deliveries, but also there for good advice, because hey, you listen to people that have been in business for that long, and he was the first one saying that,
Was he making the tea and sweeping up at this point as well? Or?
No, he was the official engineer, but the thing is with, regardless of wherever you are, you've got to be willing to get stuck in.
Yeah.
Even if you're the MD, CEO, president, you've got to show that you're willing to get stuck in at any level. And I think, hopefully my team, our family business, they all see that through us, because we've been there, seen it, and sort of done it. And to this day, we'll still get stuck into anything.
Well, the interesting things about going around, I mean, your place is brilliant. And I've said to you, Sarah, I drove past it many a time when we've got to get some stuff from those guys. That looks awesome, that building. But one thing that struck me, you all sit with the team. You don't have your own office. You're with that gang of kind of 6 desks upstairs, aren't you?
Yeah.
And that's an unusual dynamic for a lot of small businesses, is to have ownership management actually sitting in with everybody else, not in a separate tier or in their own offices. But that conscious decision, you've always kind of sat with everybody.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think 100%, because obviously communication and team building. It's around building that culture. And so obviously we always thought that that's just the way it should be. You're going to get the best outcomes because people can discuss, rather than, I've got to get up and go through that route. Okay. Is that where the precursor for open plan offices came from? I don't know, or sense of culture, because we still go into businesses today and you go, why are you all in separate offices? Yeah. It seems alien now, doesn't it? But it's certainly,
to me, it's that kind of.
But we want
so
the
telling
culture.
of the values and the culture of the business.
Yeah.
The status symbol of having my own office is not a thing for you guys. It's you where you needed. You got that constant engagement with the team.
Yeah, I've got to go back a bit. At that point, we were working incredibly hard, as you have to do. The first.
So you're now half a dozen of you.
Yeah, but just at that point, before my dad came in, I think, and before John came in, Mark was like, we were working all hours. You know what I mean? My mum and dad would still give a hand, because sometimes you have to work into the night to get that.
Your parcel and stuff.
That big order of like a couple of 100 t-shirts. Yeah. But now, that's still a good order. But now we're doing tens of thousands.
I'd hate to see laundry day in your house. You must have instinct for folding t-shirts.
But we were all working incredibly hard, and I think at that point, Mark said, like, oh, you know what? I don't know if I want to do this specifically, because he was always very creative and art orientated anyway. Like, you know what I mean? He said, I think I want to go into film. I want to be a director or something. And I think maybe want to go back to college and study that, and I was like, hey, you know what I mean? That's a decision. At that point, he wants to follow his own dream, and he didn't see that in the future of Wild Thing. You've got to accept that as well, so, we left as friends and agreed that, he would get paid a certain amount of money and stuff like that. But, I'll never forget, Wild Thing wouldn't have been Wild Thing without him at the start. And that's the way you've always got to think about that journey. And, we're still in touch today. You know what I mean? We keep in touch now and again. And, I'm sure, he should take some pride as in being at the start of, what
How did that feel? I mean, you're losing your business partner's kind of moving on, and the business is growing. That must have been, so you're in your early 30s at this point?
Yeah, or late 20s,
That must have been a big, 30s. Yeah. How did you get on with that? Okay, I'm on my own now. I've got to grow this on my own.
Yeah, I think resilience and that thing, you've just got to get on, haven't you? You've just got to, you've got to keep moving forward, and you've got to accept that challenges will happen and things will come up. And I think that's an early lesson that was really good to have to deal with at that time. But it was difficult, and it was because you've got to be the main point of pretty much everything from there in, and leadership is that. But as it turns out, Chris was there to sort of take on a little bit of that, the upside and part of that role, you know what I mean? And lots of other things. And then as those other family members we became, even in those early days, even though I was leading it was family orientated, from that early days.
So the kids come into the business in half term and stuff and wander around, or
no?
Yeah, well, yeah, when you got kids in primary school and stuff, was it that sort of environment where you'd bring kids into the office? And
I mean that's still to this day, people, hopefully every part of our teams, see it. We do treat it as a family, but also our team. So at that point in Campbell Street, with a game, we'd outgrown it. You know what I mean?
So you're coming up to that redevelopment of the rope walks now?
No? Yeah, well, sort of, but we'd got too big, and we were and it was an old building, and we were like, you know what, we're doing quite well. We're earning some good money. We'd earn enough money to have some significant money there, and we thought, we don't want to continue paying rent as well.
So you wanted to buy somewhere.
It's going nowhere, you know what I mean, type thing. So again, that was a really important moment where we said, oh no, we're going to... And it isn't really a manufacturing hub, is it? If you think it is, it doesn't have that industrial...
You've not got the power, you've not got the load space.
Yeah. I won't go into when the power supply went on fire in Campbell Street, because we were the pull and stuff. But hey, they're the things that you have to deal with when you're only an SME.
Yeah.
It's day to day. There's always a challenge or a game, but that's that movement of, oh yeah, how do we get better? Well, this is the natural progression, isn't it? But by the way, we'll be better off buying, you know what I mean? And was that from your dad, or was that from Walter? Because there's so many businesses that miss
that step out to say, actually, we're in business for the long haul together.
Yeah.
And it's the same as life, isn't it? Is buying a premises and being able to cash flow it.
Yeah.
Makes more sense than leasing.
Absolutely.
So that was, did you have that conversation with your dads? Or?
Yeah, definitely. I think like, because obviously my dad, he was in business. So obviously he was an entrepreneur, you know what I mean? Which, you know, I was always said, like, you know, he's no longer with us, but he saw us get to a point where, you know, he was like, it's just unbelievable what you've achieved. And I was like, Dad, you've been part of helping that achievement and your inspiration. So he'd bought his building, like, you know what I mean? But obviously it's timing, isn't it? Like, you know what I mean? And everything. But when he came to me, his business had gone into, you know, admin, you know what I mean? And, you know, he had to sell that premises and stuff like that. But hey, I welcome my dad, like, you know what I mean? I'll be forever grateful to get to work with him and to learn those lessons day to day, even though he was playing a different role and not leading it, because obviously you've got to be I guess the ideas of progress and constantly pushing it, where there's
you the eldest, are you?
No, I'm the second. Yeah, I've got an older brother, which Michael. He worked in the business for a while, but then he went in. He was an actor, so he never really stayed. He came and gave back and forth. But you know, Sarah and Chris. Chris is my younger brother, and Sarah's the youngest of the. So what would you call that? Third. I'm number 3. Or no, I'm number 2.
No,
I'm number 2. Yeah, I'm number 2. So
were you quite creative? Were you an artsy kind of kid to go into? Were you doing the graphic design, or what was the?
I mean, I definitely always thought differently, and we talked about the clothes early on. You know what I mean? Of like, you know, so it's sort of a serendipity that I always loved clothes. You know what I mean? Even as younger was 14, 15, going to school disco, like, you know.
In a tux.
I went in a tux, which everyone was like, that's just weird. But again, I was like, oh no, I just want to do it, you know. And I think, again, people get caught up in trying to do something that they perceive others people want to see or feel comfortable in. But I was like, well, I'm doing my own thing. And again, I think that's what we've done as a business, but as well as me personally. I just love clothes, you know what I mean? But not to impress anybody else, to impress myself a lot of the time.
You're always, I mean, obviously very smart today, but you're very deliberately put together is probably the way I describe it. Is there's conscious effort that's thought gone into it, and you and I think I've got interest in the history of clothes and kind of men's fashion and stuff. I think you're the same as.
I love the process, but there's also the creativity, but also the manufacturing.
Okay.
That goes into it, doesn't it? Like,
so you're looking at fabrics and.
Oh yeah, but the sense of, like, you know, how much work went into that to get out, and that's why sometimes, you know, people don't appreciate like the clothes that they're wearing, you know what I mean, and they maybe don't look at it, but I see things, and you know, you can bring them together, and I guess that's creative mind and innovation, and then I guess that creativity was there, even though, you know, self-taught graphic designer in those early days and stuff like that, you learned to be truthful, all those, like, that being in for the long game. You know, what I know now, if you could go back, you'd get the train a lot quicker, wouldn't you? You know? And you use your network to find out things faster. But,
I don't believe you didn't use it.
Well,
even back then.
Now I do. I'm like, you know, who do we know that can do that faster or better? You know, but those early days was all self-taught. You know, mistake. Oh yeah, that works better. You know, but I guess like in any area of business, like, you know, that's the way it works. Don't be scared of making mistakes, but get faster to the to get making the right decision is an important one too. Yeah. So we'd moved to Sandon Estate. I think we were up to there, weren't we? Yeah. Which was again transformational, because we've gone to this from this kind of very old sort of warehousey look with dodgy electricity to quite a modern unit just on the outskirts of the city centre. We were like, we've made it. This is it. We're going to the top. We're like, and again, we thought we'd never fill it, you know what I mean? And so we invested in, I mean, again, that cycle of investment was starting to happen there as well. Like, oh yeah, what do we need? We just need some new computers. We need some new kits. And that cycle, and like, you know, there we were in the sand and going, wow, we've gone big time, haven't we? Like, you know, I think that was 4,500 square feet anyway. Like, okay. Yeah. So, but to us then, and we had proper offices. So again, like, you know, proper desks, proper phone, and a dodgy internet connection that I always had to fix. But
switch it on, back on again. Yeah,
switch it on, switch it back off.
So at that point, kind of when you're thinking of how you're going to grow further, you've got into embroidery, and then when do you branch out into kind of the more general merchandise and stuff?
That was sort of the end of Campbell Street. Again, that question is, someone, if you're selling them T-shirts, you're selling them branded clothing, surely they're going to want some merchandise as well. And I was like, why isn't it all together? Yeah. But no one was doing it all together.
Really?
Again, you'd have someone who was a merchandise distributor. They would have no manufacturing facilities whatsoever, or no knowledge of background. And they'd work for an office, and they'd have a little supply chain that they went to XYZ to there. Yeah. But I was like, we are a manufacturer, yeah, but we should be that sort of middleman as well, of finding, making pens as well as producing T-shirts in-house. Hey, again, that cross-sell early on of and diversification. And so when we got to we moved to Sand, and that was a big part of what we were doing, because it was a solution-led. I mean, again, we were talking about, we've had different variations of your bit of a strap line, and it was merchandise and branded clothing experts or creative solutions. So we started to talk as if we were a bit of an agency as well, even back then, which is dead unusual, you know what I mean, for what we were doing, creativity, again, all that's driven.
Was that Sarah's influence when does?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of all our influence. We, on the actual design side and the creative side, we really thought we've got to adapt that. I was still doing some graphic design, but then we employed our first graphic designer, which seemed like a big moment. So I didn't have to do as much of that anymore, because I was still doing, obviously involved in the finance and and all the other things that your hats wear, even as your team grows to sort of 12 or 14, which was maybe around that number at that point, So
that's when it's starting to get serious. Because you've got team leads and the wage roles going up,
and serious in terms of your own responsibility, and then you've got to meet wages, haven't you, and pay the bills, and overhead start to build. But we started to do a lot in football as well, and we got our first order maybe from Liverpool LFC, which was a big one, you know what I mean? So that felt big. And then Everton as well. I'm definitely purple, doing work for both. And now the strange thing is, now to this day, we still do loads in pro football, but I think that's the standard we set of, never letting someone down. I mean, people think about kind of reputation, but we knew back then we can never let someone down. We've always got to we'll always get it on plan. So again, that diversification. And then obviously we're again, a few years later, or 3 or 4 years later, we got too big for the Sandon estate. We packed it out and we were jammed.
Did you keep that on, or did you sell it? Or?
No, we sold that, and then we moved to our current site, which we'll go into. But when we were in Sandon, we'd been speaking. We think we've got to get better at the graphic design, because even where we had someone that we had internally now, which is again very unusual for someone to have creative people or graphic designers. It was usually separated to bring someone in, but again, it was bringing together that a solution, a one solution, and they called it one-stop shop, but that's a rubbish.
Yes,
its solution is a one solution, which is you'll know about our strapline now, which is one world-class solution, but for creative branded clothing, merchandise, and print, But again, even to get that point, we're packed out, we're doing very well, but you've got to work incredibly, long hours. There was no kind of ability to delegate different roles, but you're still going to have to
accountable. You're still
and you still got to work just as hard. And there was working into the night, obviously also. But at that point, I think we bought a small company, which was specifically a graphic designer. A small, and we inherited all their Macs and stuff like that, because we've been using PCs and stuff like that prior to that, so we brought that in, and that actually particular acquisition, it was only small, but it didn't go to plan, But what we did acquire was knowledge and the benefits of being a really a strong studio, so, and those standards where we can do is something as good as maybe an agency, but we can also be the stepping stone for an agency that wants to come to someone that has all that knowledge on the design side as well, what will work, what won't. Because when you look at a brand or a logo, this is something people think, oh, I can just put that on there. But some things won't work on certain substrates, certain colors, full color graphics. These are things that we consider all the time now, which is, again, thinking innovatively and thinking creatively.
That whole journey to go from print to embroidery to the merchandise a bit to that I've never heard you say that before. You're an agency, and that is what you are. That's thinking about it externally. You are. It's not just a product. It is all the expertise of the messaging of the solutions.
And it's helping people create world-class images or innovation, stand out from the crowd. That was one of our early strap lines. We can help you stand out from the crowd. You know what I mean? And that's still, we still talk about those early days. All this is about, that dare to be different, the colors, the name, and all those things. And you don't realize the decisions that you're making there will be part of your ongoing journey to do something different, to be better. What other people aren't doing that you can do maybe better or more innovatively, which is all around creativity, isn't it? Again, the brain, we talk about creativity. It's central to all the best solutions that have ever happened in the entire universe. People shouldn't separate creativity to one specific area like art or something. It's it can be a solution even from accounts or numbers or science. We know that as well. It's the creative mind at work, as in thinking very differently from maybe someone else has done previously. So that stood us in good stead.
That kind of journey you went on, if kind of paused there and you're looking back 10, 15 years on the journey, how did you get Walter, and how long was Walter kind of with the business or with you, and what did he make of your trajectory? What would he have made of the business in 2006?
Well, I mean, did I introduce you? He came to the actual 30th.
Yeah, no, didn't.
Which was
so was he there?
He was there.
Wow.
Which he's he's in his late 80s now. But
so what was his background? How did they match you with him?
So he was expertise in business. He'd done I guess business consultation, and he worked for a variety of those business centers. Some of them were government funded. What were they? I can't remember the name of them. I'm not going to guess. Anyway, he was a business consultant giving advice on doing business better. So he'd had all that background experience in lots of different types of businesses. So that really grounded knowledge, as in the financials, the planning. You've got to have marketing in there and those other things. So he continued to follow our journey, even though we were still in touch regularly, for the first 5 years or so. But then
you've grown, you've flown the less.
You've grown, and then you're working incredibly hard, and that's what you focused on. But he's always followed our journey, and as I said, he was there.
So I didn't realize he
was there, which meant so much. But I hadn't seen him in many years. Does
he still see you as a 23, 22-year-old? And
well, I say you've seen the journey. Very few people have seen the whole journey, and you know what, proudest moments, saying you're one of my best, success stories, as in from that starting point with next to nothing, green as grass, to someone that has developed into an international company, but with an amazing culture and with trying to make a difference central to our organization, as in the ESG and obviously
and now the B Corp, certified B Corp stuff. But that's we need more businesses like that. As 50 people, 50 livelihoods. You've invested in the UK. You've expanded abroad. That's an amazing success story for Prince's Trust and
the future of our country. It needs more companies of that size, of that scale, that can scale up from a small micro, which is 2 to 5. Is it seen as a micro? Yeah, to an SME, which is 5+, and then a medium-sized business is, you know what I mean? But we're still an SME because as you push through, it's seen as 50 plus employees or a certain amount of turnover.
Yeah, so 50 million turnover.
Yeah. But we're in that category. But if more businesses were doing that, obviously that would be an incredible. We know that SMEs, play a fundamental, most important part in our economy in the UK. So we need more of those younger people to go on that
and
journey.
You're giving sort of posts on Liverpool College stuff you're doing with them. Yeah. You're constantly giving back. John Haynes.
Yeah, John Haynes Foundation. I was involved in setting that up originally. I'm not sure if you ever get to meet John Haynes?
No.
So again, that surround yourself with good people. He was a mentor and coach, you know what I mean, as in business leadership, and he had this amazing knowledge and background as in being in big businesses and training. But he is one of the best human beings I've ever met, because he was more interested in when he met someone to help them get better. So, and again, I think all those things, they embed something into you, the people that you meet along your journey, and I guess embed it into you to stop it. And he gave us loads of lessons and stuff like that. And we brought him into the business actually to do some coaching and training, because I was like, if everyone had this mindset, we could fly. And one of his terms was, you can fly with the eagles or you can scratch with the turkeys, which is true.
Like that, yeah.
Which is true, isn't it? Like we make a decision every day of what attitude we bring, But I mean, I've always had that, I guess, upbeat sense of optimism, because you've got to, even in your darkest hour, you've got to see that little bit of light, haven't you? Or your most challenging event that's happened in your business or your personal. And like that sense of optimism is what takes you or keeps you going, because hey, in business or in life, it's easy just to say, oh, it's too much like hard work, or I'm not bothered, or I'm not good enough, which is a self-limiting belief, so meeting those coaches and mentors and people, they surround yourself with good people. And, I've tried to do that at kind of each step of our journey, but never forgetting those people that have inspired you or helped you.
So are there any other mentors you've had along the way? Was there a kind of natural progression?
I've met loads, because you sort of like become magnetic to them, like people you want to be around, because what's the term? You are the sum of the people that you surround yourself by. Hey, that's why I'm here, Andrew. That's why I'm here over you as well. You too.
But you're giving back. The thing that struck me when I'm kind of walking around your place is it's intergenerational as a business.
Yeah.
And what, how do you guys bring on young people? Because I think you've had a lot of people you've said have stayed in the business a long time, but there's no shortage of fresh blood. Kind of when I was looking around your place, you do seem to be in a position where you're bringing people in and growing them and developing them. Is that fair to say?
Oh, no. I mean, 100% again, central to, and this goes back to my early days, I've got to say, whereas you're only going to get the best out of someone if you develop them or coach them, you know what I mean? As with, I got that a few touch points, you know what I mean, throughout my life as well. But going back to early, before I even started the business, I'd been a football coach, and I'd gone to America.
So Camp America.
Yeah, Camp America, and stayed in New York for a while as an illegal immigrant, but illegal alien. But let's not tell everybody about that. Well, I didn't know that at the time. I was just like going with the flow, as you do when you're 18. But
so Scouts football coach in New York. That's
yeah. But all those teach you things when you learn to become a coach, or you're taught to get your first qualification. It is all about inspiring someone else to feel that they're capable. And some of our greatest successes, I think, as a business, are genuinely bringing those young people on, an apprentice, and developing them into people that become key part of the business, and also feel an integral part, that they're part of something special, something bigger, and it's been hopefully supported and provided by us, also making sure that person knows it's going to be down to you as well, because it's always, maybe people expect sometimes that the journey is going to be seamless, but it takes, even though we're there to support all our young people, it's always the person that needs that drive to want to do better and understand that, you're part of a bigger team, it isn't just about you.
Yeah.
There's no you in team. Is that another one? Yeah. Give me plenty of these, you know.
What's the recruitment process then for Wild Thang? Is because it doesn't always work out, but when you're bringing people in, what do you look for if somebody's kind of looking to make a start? We hear a lot about AI taking away entry-level jobs, national insurance rise.
Yeah, they're all real challenges.
So many businesses I talk to, the stock talking point at the moment is, I don't want to grow headcount. I want to grow the business. I want to grow revenue, grow profitability. We can use automation. So I don't want to lose anyone, but at the moment, taking people on really hard. So and somebody starting out and they're coming to someone like you, what do you look for?
Well, I mean, just going back, that is what businesses need to do to survive. And so that's because obviously we've seen unprecedented increases in, costs, and that includes wages as well. They've been just, up and up and up. And so for businesses to even, find that level of balance and profitability, because that's what it's all about, because that's what keeps you in business and allows you to do good things within the business. Without that, you haven't got that. So, I mean, that is, I can see that the reason why that's something. Efficiency and productivity should never be a scary word to improve that. Yeah, we want to grow the headcount, but if you're not adapting and becoming more efficient as a business and better, well, you are going to be, history to some degree, because that's the movement of that. And, the AI world that we live in now is no different from when emails first started, or the World Wide Web. Yeah. People were like, oh, it's a fad, or it's it's not going to change. But you've got to be aware of it. But I think within our 30, I think we had some discussions as in what we wanted for the future, and while AI has a very important role to play, I can see that already. It's how we use it, and we've got to be careful how we use it, because I want to grow our numbers. I don't want that to take away the human element or the human connection, because the next big idea isn't necessarily coming from AI. Well, I don't think it is, because AI isn't the unique, creative, innovative brain, is it? It never can be.
Pattern recognition machine and copies what's average, what's mundane, what's middle of the road.
Exactly.
It's the antithesis of what
we are fully committed to growing our headcount, but we need to be that business that's also
making
money, and also being as productive and efficient. How can we do things better? How can we stay ahead of the curve? And that headcount, especially for younger people, needs to be facilitated by the government, you know what I mean? And there needs to be funds there, because at the moment, the thing is, you're taking on a young person that's going to need an incredible amount of time, even on an apprenticeship. And as with, you'll remember, YTSs and those training programs, you started off, the gift that you were given is that you will learn those skills and then be able to grow in it, you know what I mean? The stepping stones. They're no longer there, you know what I mean? The entry level is, I'd say, well, cost-wise, because of the time that it takes to bring a young person and bring them into the business, it takes time, doesn't it, and energy. And those costs needs to be reevaluated, as in, what are their stepping stones, and also growing into their role,
We do seem to be going back to the 90s. I mean, youth training scheme, graduate training scheme, that idea of subsidising the entry-level roles to give people a start, that did work.
I know, that's what I'm talking about. And it needs to be rethought, because at the end of the day, the business has only got so much money. Whatever business you are, you're bringing that money. It's got to get an ROI, hasn't it, eventually? Or you've got to see that scale of what it is. Yeah. And ultimately, even employing apprentices or anyone you employ, the recruitment you were talking about, it can be very hit and miss. You bring someone in, you talk about your culture, because that's the most important part, that they're going to understand your culture, they're going to embrace it. Now, some people will come in and say, yes, I'm really committed to that. But later on down the line, you find out that actually they're not, and they leave. And then there's other people that go, wow, this is really a company that's got aspiration. And they see that it's bigger than any one individual, and that's a team. And that's when they become really part of your journey and part of our team ethic, part of our family business, because you've got to talk as a team, as family, because otherwise you're going to spend a great deal of time with these people as well, like we talk about, and that's important, but that's got to be embedded into a culture. But yeah, so recruitment is difficult, because the world that we live in now, some people, they want it too fast, and you see a lot of people moving pretty much constantly, don't they, between job to job. But I always look at that and they go, are you really creating a good foundation for your future? Because when I look at that, I look at, someone that is trying to find something that maybe isn't there, because we talk about the, people looking for the perfect job, a perfect fit. Whatever it is you're going to do, it's going to be hard work, and you're only going to achieve something within a company if you're willing to be one of those persons that's driving forward or helping that.
Yeah.
And that will always be recognized in any business. But some people, there's an expectation that maybe that, oh yeah, it's just a given. Well, it isn't a given, is it? It can never be a given because it doesn't work like that. What do you think?
Yeah, that's a really interesting way of phrasing the kind of the jumping around on the CV thing. It's like any relationship. If you give up on it, or you say it's not for me too quickly, okay, you can tell yourself you're eliminating options and getting experience and things, but it does take a bit of time to discover yourself as well as, the circumstance. I mean, just the stuff you talked about, kind of the youth training scheme and employers like you getting more support to take young people on. For me, that's a no-brainer, because it's either, do you want people on the dole, which the state's gonna have to pay for anyway, or do you want to help SMEs take people on? You've got the corrosion and the loss of the role models that you talked about. If we don't get people into employment, they're going to sit on social media. You've got depression, you've got substance abuse, you've got disengagement from the workforce. The longer they're not economically active, engaged, the harder it gets.
Statistics are all proven. And hey, we embrace technology, but then we can re-look at it and say, what's working, what isn't, you know what I mean? What's adding value to our lives or society, and what is taking it away. And while social media has many benefits, it's also got some things that are incredibly negative, like, and that do affect people. And that in terms of human connection, like us sitting here now, I think I think there is a change in the world that is happening at the moment, that people are seeking more connection because they feel so isolated or alienated. But that needs to be retaught, doesn't it? As with like where we're at our best, where I think the biggest deal I'm ever going to get, the biggest piece of business we're ever going to do, or even on a human level, the best next mentor, the new friend that I'm going to meet is going to be by meeting them. And that is around looking in someone's eyes, and that is around integrity, and that is around making a connection with another human being, which is facilitated sometimes through teams, but it just isn't the same. That's
a really interesting perspective, and it gets me thinking. I'm thinking of you in terms of you being a mentor for young people, but you're not done. You've still got ambition and drive, and you've got a vision, a plan. How does it feel being in the position you're in, where people look at you, say, really successful guy, successful business, been doing it for 30 years, but in your head, you're looking for your next mentor still? Is you're looking? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you never stop learning, and that's it. You know what I mean? I think, anyone.
What's Andy looking for in your next mentor is kind of your profile?
I guess someone who's been there and seen it and done it. And I've got some people around me that
so you go, somebody who's gone from the 50 to the 100, 150.
Yeah. No, I mean, even bigger. But again, you watch carefully. But everyone's journey is different as well. That's what I've found, is that even though I know some, incredibly successful people that have done great things, I admire them very, very, very much. It's not the journey I want to necessarily go on, their specific one, because we should never be going on someone else's journey. It's always got to be your pathway of what feels right. But right now, even after 30 years, we've never been more excited or in a better position to really think. As my sister says, she feels we're only just getting started. And I guess you've got to feel that every year, because every year you've got to have that in your head. Well, it's what's the next step? You know what I mean? In that sense. But as I said, always committed. And any mentorship I've done with young people where I've presented a little bit about our story, as we're talking about today, I'll say, I was no different from you. People think that you're going to be able to provide an easy pathway. I can tell them about my journey, and they can hopefully take some golden nuggets, around the getting the simple things right. Because I think, back to foundations, you've got to get the really, really simple things, like the work ethic. Building resilience is the big one, isn't it? Like that.
You touched on that a few times. So when's your resilience most been tested, and particularly in the early days, when did you think, oh Christ, I can't do this? What were the hardest challenges for your resilience in the early days?
I mean, I guess I've been really, really blessed that I've always been able to, even in that very, very difficult moment, to get motivated and just to keep going. Just keep going, don't stop. And, you know, when you read all those books, you know what I mean, about people's success stories, it's the one that stays along in it for the longest game, or keeps on going regardless of what's put in front of them. But they all learned through mentorship and learning other people's stories. And I'm an avid reader of people's journeys. You know, that interests me more than anyone, because you can take, you don't want to follow their journey because that's impossible, but you can take something from there. But that resilience, and again, I think for the generation of our next generation of our youth, the earlier they get taught, you know what I mean, kind of that as well, and given the tools that will help them to keep going. But biggest challenges as well. COVID's another one, Brexit, multiple recessions that we've always found a way. But you've just got to be up for the fight, haven't you? Because what we can guarantee in life sometimes is that there will be challenges. We can absolutely guarantee. So if you're aware that will be challenges, maybe in your head you're prepared for the fight as well, rather than, because it's, you'll know Andrew, and everyone who listens to this maybe will know that life is a roller coaster, whether it's professionally or personally. You know, it's a challenge, like, you know, or even what's going on in the head. You know, we all have those points where, you know, we question certain things, but, you know, you just got to keep going.
Where do you get stop. So I mean, you're always a bundle of energy and optimism, and that's a characteristic I've learned a lot of business leaders. It's the, well, I'm not going to fail. We're going to figure it out. It's going to work out. Where do you replenish those batteries? Is it family? Is it exercise? Where do you get that energy from? And that optimism?
Hey, it's all those things, but I've always known that that is a very lucky, you know, being mentored and coached. But I had that from an early day of, like, if you show enthusiasm, your outcome will always be better. If you show a positive mindset, your outcome will always be better than if you were like, oh, you know, the world's against me. It's like we can spend a whole lot of time thinking of, like, why is this happening to me, rather than what can I do to maybe get through this. You know, I mean, again, that's that resilience. But like, but yeah, every day I wake up, you know, and I've done this from quite early, of just saying, it's down to me, isn't it? You know what I mean? It's down to me and the people around me to make that happen. But in a leadership role, ultimately, even when you're having a really hard time, you've got to be the person that brings that sense of optimism and enthusiasm, because I think that's my fundamental first, number one thing above anything else, is that I've got to bring that positive enthusiasm, and I've got to bring that belief every single day, because that's the most powerful thing in the universe. You know, everything else, there are many other things within that, but that's the number one. And
has that gotten stronger over the years, or did that emerge, or did 15-year-old Andy have that when he wanted to kind of, in a couple of years' time, go off and do Camp America and coach football?
I mean, I always think I had that sense of enthusiasm, and then maybe that extrovert in me. The clothes is one of them. But I was always like the first to get up on the dance floor, not really worry about what other people think. So, and I think that, you know, I'm very lucky to maybe come from parents who said you couldn't do that, or you couldn't, or you could do that, but there wasn't any major judgment. So that gives you a bit of a freedom, like, you know what I mean?
It's a big family. And so what was mum and dad's mindset? Was it, okay, you can tell you can do anything but figure it out, or, you know, how are you going to do it?
I mean, just watching my dad, and, you know, the fact that he'd started the company and was working really, really hard, that's an inspiration. But they were aspirational in themselves, because he was the first in his family to start a business and stuff. It was, people were like, oh no, you shouldn't be doing that. It's a bit too risky, isn't it? Like, that was the mindset, wasn't it?
Do you Kirby family originally, are you?
No, from Netherton Way. That's where my mum and dad sort of met, and, you know,
1221
grew up there, and then moved around, got married, you know what I mean, and Mike was first to come along, and then he moved to Skem, you know, so they spent a while there, and they said, like, we don't want to live here forever. I mean, not, you know, and that was their aspiration, as in, like, you know, they were renting somewhere there at that time, and then decided to buy, you know, which again, aspiration, because a lot of people, they didn't have that aspiration, you know, to do that. So you take that from there. Then they moved to McGull, and that's where I grew up as a teenager. You know, right. I'll be forever thankful, like, you know, for like having that. But because I have two, Chris and Sarah, there's quite a big age gap between us. I mean, we were just giving. My mum and dad were busy looking after them, so we were like, as you know, it's different now. We know, but we were like, just you've got to get it. You've got to get on with
countryside around.
You've got to get on with your own stuff, or first pub.
So was your mum in the business as well, or?
Oh, she always helped out, but she wasn't directly in the business. Like even though, obviously, as a part-time, getting in and out, always being paid, of course. Like, you know what I mean. That she was always helping. Like, but again, I think my mum. She was a bit entrepreneurial herself, to be truthful. She was always had like a little thing going while my dad was doing to earn a bit of extra, because that all helped, didn't it? Like, so she did the, Tupperware and, clothing things that they did, but always had a part-time of some time. But she was a good motivator, because she'd kick you up the bum. Okay, I'm allowed to say that, aren't I? Like,
say anything you want, mate. It's your podcast.
If she thought you weren't, trying hard enough on something, and like, a very early age. I mean, again, this is maybe where me like from clothes came from. At like 14, 15, she said, "I'm not ironing your clothes anymore." And I was like, "I'm gonna have to learn to like iron, aren't I?" Like, so maybe that's another like great life lesson that my mum gave me. Or was it 13? I thought, well, it's one of that. I'm too busy, I can't do it. And I was like, well, I'm gonna learn, because I like me clothes just right.
Right. Is it into vintage clothes as well? Vintage suits? Do you kind of follow, the vintage collecting and stuff?
I've got pretty much a suit for every occasion and every style. Like, you know what I mean? As in, from different kind of eras. They aren't necessarily vintage, but some of my suits now are vintage because I've had them for that long. And the thing is, buying something, you should think, is it going to last? You know what I mean? And by the way,
so you treat yourself to a tailored suit occasionally.
Yeah. And that was, I've had a couple of them, and they're big moments, because you see the process in motion. But even like, again, we talk about like that confidence you need to have. Even if you're wearing it, you can either shine with confidence and enthusiasm, or you can feel as if, I feel a bit uncomfortable, because I'm too
like
dressed.
Somebody who's used to wearing a suit. I know that it's something you get with young lads in particular. It's like, God bless you, you're not used to wearing a suit.
Exactly.
You've got to fill it.
As with, you want people to see as that it should be embraced. You know what I mean? As in, again, that's another thing. Getting outside your comfort zone is the key to personal development, isn't it? Like, things that you are a bit scared of. If you're able to just get over that line, that's when the magic happens. Because then you go, I did it, didn't I? I did it,
Think about me mum, and when I kind of bought my first suit for my first job interviews at like 15, 16. I'm sure she thought I was still going to grow. But it was that kind of, the shoulders were not a bit bigger than the chest.
Your blazer, like same as your blazer, you grow into it.
But it's not my job interview suit. Kind of look back now, I was like, that anyone I sat down and interview must have looked at me and gone, he's not used to wearing a suit. But it is something you grow into, I think.
And again, now I'm like, it should be unique. It should be your style. I admire anybody that rocks up. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the suit. If they're doing their thing that is unique to them, as long as they're taking pride in what they're doing, it doesn't matter whether it's punk or whatever. Like, Vivienne Westwood, again, she's an inspiration that she broke down the barriers of, kind of like what was normal to wear, what wasn't. Because it was just suits before then, but now, full circle, I've got a really lovely Vivienne Westwood belt that I've had for 20 years, you know what I mean, which is vintage.
Goes back to your quality thing.
Quality, again, buy quality, which has been an ethos at Wild Thing as well, all about the quality, delivering the very best, standards, and that's been a journey that we've been certainly on over the years. How do we be the best? We might have a creative name, and we might have an unusual name, but we want people to take us seriously. So that has been the driver behind certification and actually governance. How do we rise above the other people, as well as diversifying? How do we get better? Well, certification is proof of that, which you need to be part of your own governance, which is, again, as we've developed over the years, to be a Campbell Street, which is a lovely world-class premises that you begin to see. Big part of that journey has been that constant improvement, and part of that is the ISOs. We've achieved all those.
Which are not easy to get, particularly in your line.
Well, of course, but there are obviously different ISOs that are covering different areas, and the 9001 back then, it was seen as the standard of quality. Like, you know what I mean? That could be assured because you're following a certain amount of processes that are fundamental to, you know, kind of like non-conformances. If something goes wrong, we report it and we write a report on how it will make things better. All that sets the tone to world class, doesn't it? Because there's a Japanese word, isn't it? Kaizen. Called like, which is
total production method. Kenshi, I know what you mean.
Well, it's continuous improvement. That, you know, the better never stops. Like, you know, and we've been on that journey with certification and the SMETA, like SEDEX SMETA, which again, you know, what's the next thing? We need to do the carbon reporting. You know what I mean, which sets that tone. And more recently, last year, you know, was obviously again we talk about our 30th being a milestone. And becoming B Corp, you know, was equal to like anything that we'd achieved prior to that, like, you know, because it really sets a tone, as in that really is
Kaizen.
That's Kaizen. Yeah. Well looked up. I knew it was around there, but again, it's that mindset. And when you read that, I said, we've been doing that, haven't we? And that's just another word, but like, but we know that many of the most successful companies come from that area and they have that mindset, and when they bring that into an operation that is fundamentally not working very well, as soon as they apply that, it gets better. You know, sometimes it's like not rocket science.
It's not being afraid to recognize where you can improve and where you've been getting it wrong.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So one take you to, you do run, lead at the head of a successful family business, and that's quite an achievement in itself because not all family businesses work, but yours does. How's that come about? Is that just the nature of the family, or how is it that Wild Thang are a successful family business and so often family businesses kind of don't work out? Because you're intergenerational, you've grown, 30 years is a hell of an achievement, and you're not stopped.
I think, you know, with any family businesses, you know, you've got to be absolutely honest. There will be challenges because that's natural, but again, there are many more benefits. You know what I mean? That there's trust, commitment that can go, which goes above and beyond. But I think that sense of like a family, you know, I mean, again, you talk about business. A business should know, we should be no different to like a family having good family values. You know what I mean? Of how we, you know, we treat each other, how we work together to create a better future. You know, and we talk about like, you know, that within our organization, but especially as a family. So I guess that comes from my dad and mom, you know what I mean? And again, you know, that ethic of like, you know, kind of working together, and you live or fail, whether only with the ability to work each other or work towards something or not, you know. So, but it's not easy for any family business, and you can see why sometimes it simply doesn't work, you know, because, you know, and again, I think that's looking at strengths, because everyone's got the strengths within that. You've got to have that. If people are too similar, that's not going to be necessarily good for the business, is it? Because you're not being progressive. But again, if people are too different, that isn't going to. So it's that balance of finding strengths in each other, because we've all got our role to play and we all got to play to our strengths, but also be focused on that actually we're only going to do this together. It can't be any other way, can it? You know, even though
that wasn't premeditated. Being a family business wasn't something you set out. It's just something that's organically.
Yeah. And it's happened, you know what I mean? And we wouldn't be where we are without being that family business. That's an actual fact, because what you learn in business, which I'm sure you've been told many, many times. Again, I talked about being to surround yourself with good people. Your ability to grow is only around the people that are within the business and have the same attitude and the same work ethic, you know what I mean, to want to achieve that, you know, and have a sense of purpose that actually, you know what, we're going to be in business, but we're going to try and do it the right way as well. And that has always been something that has been a large part of when we created our own Wild Thing way, which is our culture piece around what really we need to embed in every single person. Like, you know, when we talk about that all the time, and like central to that is, you know, on our like mission statement, which is at the headline, is to deliver that, you know, one world-class solution for creative brand and clothing and print, but with sustainable values and ethical central to it, like everything that we're doing. And then there's lots of other points on social values and why we're doing that, because ultimately you want to be a business that's putting much better, put more back than taking out, because that should be the game of life, you know. And how do we want to be remembered? We talk about integrity. every mentor that I've ever met or every great business person, the integrity has been the most important thing. And that is the ability to always be culpable to, if you say you're going to do something, you're going to do it. You know what I mean? And by the way, you're authentic with it. And we are equal. I am no better than you, Andrew. You're no better than me. And I think I was lucky to have had that, wherever I go, whatever room I go in, I don't feel overwhelmed with the people that are around me, whether they're billionaires or millionaires. It doesn't really matter. They are just ultimate people, as long as I'm bringing that sense of equal respect.
Yeah.
And even when someone's disrespects you, you've got to push to say, well, you're not for me. And then you find the person that align with your own values.
That's very interesting.
That was a bit deep, wasn't it?
Oh, no. That's what it's about, mate. And it's that, for me, it's that half of all your success is luck.
Yeah.
As it's hard work, it's your skill, but
graft.
It could equally, with the wrong luck, it could be a very different story. So, as a family, I mean, you're all quite high performers, if that makes sense. Is that the whole team you're all an impressive group of individuals within the business as well. Is that come from your folks? How did you all get so high caliber at what you do?
Yeah, I mean, again, it takes time, doesn't it? It takes time, but being taught very early on that if you're not willing to put in the effort, do the hard graft, it's very difficult, you know what I mean, to achieve, something that is going to be of I guess, high merit or high quality. And that's why we talk about world class, but we make an analogy in sport. It's no different. Life is input and output. Kind of like the more we put in terms of effort, with the right training, with the right advice, all those other things. It's a discipline thing, because we can talk about creating, I guess, momentum, but momentum without the right level of consistency and discipline, well, it's just momentum without any actual progress, isn't it? Because progress is around those dead simple things, and we've got to remind ourselves. But within our team, you've got to have that culture piece that is promoting those things between us. You know what I mean? That we are doing this together, and while we are there for you, you've got to be the driver of your own destiny, isn't it? So. But yeah, it's
so I want to move on to the certified B Corp stuff.
Yes,
which is a massive investment on your part.
Yes,
you're in a business that it's not easy. You're not a professional services firm. This is not as easy as a paper exercise. It's a serious thing to do. What was the drive for doing that? What were the challenges in getting it? Why did you bother?
Okay, so while we'd got all those certifications that came before,
so you got your ISOs, you've got your trade association, seals of approvals.
The highest level of where we'd got at that point, it was the actual. Again, that what's next?
When's this? When did you look at this? What year were we looking at this?
This is probably about three years ago. And we've done, you might have seen our sustainability pledge, which is quite in depth. And it's a piece of governance that documents everything that we're trying to do. And when we'd listed all that, we were like, oh my God, we're doing a lot. We've done the sustainability pledge, which covered carbon, doing our carbon margin, do a carbon report, doing offsetting. What are we doing within the building? How can we make our scope on solar on the roof? You've seen it, yeah.
The product that you sell is all really high quality stuff, and the stone paper, I think.
Yes,
the notepads, all that. So
it's again, we know that now we try and offer a lower eco impact, and we talk about that. We don't say sustainable because very few products are, and that would be greenwashing. But lower eco impact, which has less detrimental impact, is the key to the things that we're offering. Now, some have higher levels of that, of less eco impact, or are more sustainable, is fine too. But again, we'd done that pledge, which was 8 points. We thought, and I went out there and I did loads of research around best practice. You know what I mean? Kind of what does best practice looks like? And all that made me realize we've got to create that best practice for ourselves, because it's got to be unique to us rather than buying it off a shelf. As with ISO, you follow a very regimented order, which is good and everything, but to create something that is unique to us in a business, I did that sustainability pledge. And point 8 was like, you know what, I think B Corp's the level where we next want to aspire to be, because it was, and once I'd read into it, like, you know, it's the platinum level, especially, and hardly any people in our industry or manufacturing have it, because they know the complexities of becoming B Corp, because it covers all parts of ESG, you know what I mean? The environmental, the social impact, and the governance, you know. And the governance we're already doing really, really well. And like the social impact, we did a list of all the things that we were involved in, doing things for our team, doing things. And we're like, wow, we're doing really, really well. And we were on that journey on the sustainability, and we'd already made some incredible progress. And I was like, I want to get that B Corp. But then the journey starts, of course, like, because it's such a rigorous process. And like, you know, I announced it actually at like the Good Small Business Festival, and we were sponsored there. And I went up on stage and saying, I'd just like to announce we've got this new sustainability pledge. It's going to take us to another level. And pledge 8 is we're going to go for that B Corp, and we're going to get it. Well, I said, we're going to get it. So I sort of made a fundamental promise at that point, which is maybe a good thing.
Yeah.
But then in reality, I didn't know what was to come, like, you know, as in the challenges that we had to go through, and the process, the game that we had to uplift, even though we were at one of the best in our industry already, where we had to raise the bar even further across our team, covering all those areas. And that took around from the point that I announced it and said, we're going to go for it. That took about 3 years or 2.5 years. Yeah,
that's longer than an ISO.
Yeah, much longer. Like, you know, ISO, you know, even though you've got to be really committed to it, otherwise you're not going to get it. You know what I mean? You can do that in a few, maybe. But ISO, 3 months.
You get the handbook. You know, you're going to be audited. You know what you need to do.
It's a lot different
an
because
manual.
B Corp. I mean, people think that it's a specific process that you have to go through by tick boxing. But with B Corp, what you're presented with, it's unique to you, which is really, really, really important, isn't it? Like, because it should be benchmarked on you as a business rather than you as a process. So you've got to prove all those things within that, but also you've got to be totally honest, totally transparent. Which, let's face the facts, we know a lot of businesses, you know,
particularly if you've got supply chain as well.
Yeah. Supply chain, you know, which is they're not necessarily, but you know, we were already pushing the boundaries anyway. So we said, like, well, you've got to be transparent, and it's progress, not perfection. And I got that really off my mate, Garth Dallas again. Have you even met Garth a few times?
Garth,
yeah. And he obviously runs the Good Small Business Festival, and I'm like, and that is central to like a B Corp ethos, that there's always going to be a next step.
So talking about the certified B Corp journey you guys have been on, 3 years to get that.
Yeah.
What were the biggest challenges with certified B Corp?
Well, it starts off with you have to fill in kind of like there's lots of questions, and then you fill them in, and it gives you an estimated score. But then every question leads to another question, and every question in that leads to another question that has to be proven. So as you go through each of those questions and each of those areas, which covers every area of ESG,
it's not just environmental.
No.
It's social value.
The thing, as with
people.
like, you know, those ISOs, there are different areas and different categories. There are many other like certifications that you can get that are about sustainability, about social, you know, impact, or about governance. There are very few, well, especially to that standard, that cover all those values, and that's what attracted, I guess, me to it. But also, it felt like it was the right thing to do. You know, as with we want to be world class, but we want to be world class doing the right thing. You know, for me, I'd rather not be world class, or rather not do any of it if I wasn't trying to do it in the right way, where it's going to make a difference. You know what I mean, in society, in our community, and that's, you know, central to like our culture. But again, I'm obviously very conscious, while I'm very passionate about these things, about making a difference. You've also got to be commercially viable, because you can be the best ESG company out of business in the world. So I had to sell this to the other directors and explain why I thought this was the future as well, because it is the future. The best businesses, best in practice, are going to be tested this in the future. The most successful companies are the ones that are transparent, have authenticity, want to make a difference. All those things, they're going to be the great companies of the future. So,
and people are buying with the values at the moment as well.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. I think that's only going to get stronger as well. So not only do I want to do it myself, is it the right thing to do? That's got to be in your heart. But also, is that future-proofing as well? Probably as well. Very much so, I think, now that you look into it more and more. And the more you're committed to it, the more elevation you get above others, you know.
For somebody who's chief exec MD, what advice would you give them for that first presentation to the board when you put it on the agenda? You've got your non-execs there, you've got everyone there. Is how did you pitch it to everybody?
It was pitched like I put then. You know what I mean? It's the future. It's going to add value. There's quite a lot of market research that that puts out, if you attain it, it will more than likely help you elevate your business and increase growth as well. If you can get it, you know what I mean? If you do it. So it's got to be a combination of it's the right thing to do, like I said, but also the commercial. There's got to be a commerciality. So that was part of the why, and there's got to be a why. Why are we doing it? Because it's going to take a lot of resources. It's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take a lot of money, you know. And
it's not a cheap activity.
And investment. Well, no, because becoming the best in that area is incredibly resource heavy. You know, that's people's time, isn't it? You know, it's not just the money you're investing, but that is the money you're investing because that's someone's time and that's someone's wages. And that's those other things that you've got to do.
And you're increasing your cost base. It's not just labour. It's your materials are going up. Your processing costs are going up.
And that is affecting your bottom line, by your very, very bottom line. But if you're in it to the long game, you've got to see, well, actually, that's going to win us more business eventually. That's going to set us apart. And now, by doing that and all the other things that we've done, you know, we're one of the most sustainable in our industry sector, one of the most certified, seen as an industry leader, you know, setting the tone for what others aspire to be. And then you've got a power of influence, which is another responsibility, by the way. As you become B Corp, you find out that, well, actually, it's a responsibility to not only keep our house in order, but it's also a responsibility to promote. So others say, well, actually, I'm going to try and be better. Not necessarily go to B Corp, but be better, because ultimately that is your integrity, and ultimately you're only as good as, like, you know what I mean, what you're doing, input and output.
How did you tackle the supply chain bit? Because this in my head, when I think about you and B Corp, this is the Apple dilemma, is you're the premium upfront brand. You do a lot of manufacturing in-house, you do a lot of manufacturing in the UK, but you also have a supply chain. How did you go about going to your suppliers and saying, look, we're going for B Corp, we need you to sort of up your game as well? Was that part of the process?
Yeah, that's part of it. Even though before that we would check in on certainly on the ethically, you know what I mean, and certainly like not as much on the sustainability. So we already sort of had a process in place, because that was part of our ISO 14001, that we know where our supply chain are up to. But obviously B Corp takes another level, you know what I mean? Now we're asking, where are you up to on your sustainability? Are you doing a carbon audit? Where are you up to? Now, any supplier that we're onboarding now that is going to be part of our future has to be, we're not necessarily saying meeting the standards that we are, but meeting very high standards that then link into that supply chain on the ethically and sustainability, and to the right quality as well. So they're really important things. But then you've got an incumbent supply chain, which again, you've got to give that opportunity to get better as well and promote better. This is, by the way, we would never align with someone that is damaging, like, you know, in any way, or is doing things unethically. But this is the stepping stone to how do they elevate? How do we promote? Well, actually, this is going to be better for your business in a long time. And that's the other ripple effect. And again, a responsibility to be the promoter of those things as well.
It's an amazing achievement. To me, it feels like it puts you into a premium category. If that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%.
And how did your customers respond? So you've got some really big customers, but we haven't talked about kind of some of the amazing companies that work with you guys. How did they respond when you said, okay, we're certified B Corp, or we're going for certified B Corp?
Well, this is maybe a good incentive for people that are considering it, or even want to start finding out more about it, is that when we achieved it last year and we announced it, and you may have seen we did some video.
Yeah, the ice cream van.
Yeah. We did all sorts of things. We had the mayor there because we knew it was a big deal, but we've never had it's more publicity and more positive reaction than we've ever had to any other piece of publicity we've ever announced. And we're quite regular announcing. We want to celebrate the good stuff that we're doing, whether it's in the community or doing more environmental. So that's an incentive. But also all our supply chain were like, wow, we know that now you are definitely, in terms of we're an excellent part of their supply chain, as with other people. If they don't know they're not meeting their standard, well, they're a question mark over there where they sit in the supply chain, because ultimately all our clients, we sit in with their supply chain, and now we're in the most excellent, because obviously we're scope 1 and 2 carbon neutrality. I can say that, and we're going for the certification which associates that, where we can get it certified that we are carbon neutral. But to really, really take the next step level, there's an ISO that you have to get to prove it, which follows.
So the carbon stuff, your carbon offsetting with tree planting programs, the roof of your place is covered in solar.
Yeah. So scope 1 and 2, excellent. Our supply chain will always be a work in progress, because ultimately, and we'll only be aligning with companies that have the scope 1 and 2. If everyone was scope 1 and 2, guess what? There wouldn't be a problem.
Place,
no, there would, because everyone would be meeting the standards as part of the scope 3, because that's your scope 3. So if everyone in our supply chain is scope 1 or 2, you know what I mean, to some degree, that's where we are. We've ticked every single box. It doesn't get it.
Did you lose any suppliers? Does anyone say not bothering?
There will be, because there's natural alignment. So now we're just not aligning with companies that don't have that. It's like the recent partnership that we announced with Stanley Stella, which are one of the biggest producers of organic cottons. They're seen as an industry leader in driving change for more ethical and also more sustainable products across the range. They chose us, we chose them, because but again, alignment. By that alignment, someone else within our supply chain that isn't as good as them, well, it gets transferred over to them, doesn't it? Because that's the better thing to do.
So you're propagating the
But we'll obviously, if they come back and say, why don't you use something, we'll say, well, that's because of that. But if you improve your standards, then of course you'll be back in the mix again, from that point of view.
What did it feel like when you got it? Is it kind of a race to the finish? Is it kind of last few yards, or is there a sudden big bang where it's like boom, all
Carrie
done?
will be the first to say this. It's the goal that you never. It keeps moving, keeps moving forward, and you think literally you're never going to get there, because you go through a series of checks and processes.
It's an audit. So it's like
an audit,
and
it gets audited, and it continuously gets audited and changes.
Do they consult with you? Is it kind of kicking the tires? Do they help you along the journey?
No. They're very supportive, but obviously it's a stringent thing. There's they're not saying, oh yeah, if you do a little bit of that, then
I'll pass you.
Yeah, I'll pass you. No, it doesn't work like that. But you feel as if there's a constant next step, which is natural. But then they said, you're very nearly there, and we're like, oh my God, we're very nearly there. Then they said there's one more next step, and we're like, oh my God, you wouldn't believe this. And then, it happens, and then, well, you feel a sense of you don't really enjoy it, because you're more just tired.
Exhausted.
Literally what you are. And I think, everyone who's gone for B Corp and has been on that similar journey. It's not just a tick box. It's not easy to achieve, because you're either a very small consultancy, which is incredibly easy to manage, without the complexities of supply chain or manufacturing base or large pull on electricity and all those other things. But we're now enjoying it, and we can definitely say that it's the hardest and best thing we've ever achieved as a milestone. I think, and it's going to pay dividends. It already is paying dividends, but it's a long-term investment. You're not going to get it, then all of a sudden see people saying, well, align with you. But what we see now is people are naturally aligning with us, because we're best in practice.
Are you seeing the
Premium,
snowball effect? You know, is it bigger orders? Is it more premium orders? You're obviously winning the clients, and
I certainly think when we go through, obviously with some of the larger clients that we deal with, like you were saying before, we deal with Sony or McDonald's or Flutter Group, even LFC and those others. Now their actual onboarding is quite, it's quite detailed in what you have to meet to become part of their supply chain as well. So we're finding that we need to do a lot of work on it, that every time we are passing kudos. In fact, we're being told that, by the way, not only are you great, you're 90% better than anyone else in our supply chain, anywhere in our supply chain. So that tells you where you've elevated is.
Amazing.
There's another great stat as well. I think what is that percentage? I think it's only like 20% that start the process, or it might even be less actually, of becoming B Corp, ever become B Corp, because and that could be down to resources. I'm not judgmental. At least they tried, you know what I mean? And maybe they'll go back to it at a point in the future. But that sets the tone, and you've got to be very good to even consider going in.
Quite an exclusive club of.
Oh yeah. There's only 3,000 in the UK. There's 5 million businesses, so that puts you in context. And worldwide, there's only 6 or 7. Or maybe a bit more. There might be 20, but there's not many if you think about globally.
It's an unusual thing to see, as a certified B Corp on branding.
But you see it become more apparent on packaging, don't you? If you see it there, again, that for me is around trust, that I can align with them. And I've got a great starting point, as in they are one of the best in practice.
Has it changed your perspective as a businessman, as a consumer, now that you've been through that certified B Corp journey? When you see certified B Corp on a product or a service, is there a secret handshake? Is there actually, I know the work that's gone into that?
Well, yeah. I mean, and every B Corp that we meet, we have a laugh, because we talk about how difficult it was, and how much resources and how much investment it takes. But it's really the commitment, isn't it? It's a commitment to be better. And I think that's got to be founded. I think there were 1 or 2 businesses, they wanted to achieve it for maybe necessarily the wrong reasons, just to have it as a tick box. But in reality, you just don't. And these days, the thing is with B Corp, next time we go for recertification, it will be harder to achieve. So we'll have got better. So again, it's that sense of progress, which is embedded in that. But when I go to those B Corp community meetings, or kind of meet the other businesses that are involved in the B Corp community, because that's what it should be, and it is like, it feels like a room of people alignment, really, when you meet those people, you're like, it's instantly like, you've got something that you seem to have the shared values and ethics around why you're doing it and what the difference you want to make.
Fantastic. Seems like the whole corporate CrossFit sort of culture of everyone's in it together, and everyone's there's a certain way of life.
There's a real sense of community,
piece of work to achieve,
and that's what
it.
attracted me to B Corp as well. That sense of B Corps use B Corps because they know that they'll be a good part of your supply chain.
That's interesting.
And there's got to be more of that. But I think that's got to be more out there in the wider business world. By the way, the person that you're using is a reflection of you. I mean, and that's a fact. People like to say, "Oh no, they're just them. They're doing their own thing. That has nothing to do with you." By the way, it does.
So much of this we talk about today has come from values, kind of for you, values,
family
spirituality. Where is that a big part of the business? Big part of you that drives you? Is your values, your beliefs? Where do they come from?
I mean, that's what builds a culture. And when you're writing kind of your mission statements and your culture, the Wild Thang way, that's got to come from your heart, hasn't it? It's got to come from, what do I want to achieve in the future? How do I want to be seen? Am I doing the right thing? Am I trying to do the right thing? So, but all that comes from, I guess, is a little bit of that spirituality. We talked about things that we enjoy doing and stuff like that. I mean, that's an integral part of, my life, you know what I mean? And when I look at lots of different religions across the world, it's generally the religion central to whatever it is, Hindu, Buddhism, Muslim, Jewish, central to that is community and making a difference, and always being told to try and make a difference in your community and give back. I'm a Catholic, but I see no difference in when I go to church than any other religion, because I've been to plenty of different places around the world. And when you see there's a pureness around that, actually, I just want to make a difference to some other person's life, because ultimately that's how we're going to define, how are we going to be remembered. That's the way I feel about, life in general. And that's played a really, really important part in the tough times as well. That's the other, we talk about that resilience, that plays a part.
So that faith, that spirituality gets you through the tough
I
times
think so.
as well.
You know what I mean? But when I meet someone that says they don't believe in anything, it scares me, you know what I mean? Because ultimately, human beings need to believe in each other. And I've seen, whether you believe in a religion or not, it's believing in something just like you're believing in someone else to try and do the right thing, rather than the wrong thing. Surely we're in the game of that around the world, and we're not going to go into politics at the moment, but it's a really scary world out there at the moment. But we can be the players that are making a difference, that are putting that little bit back, which is,
I think you're an amazing ambassador for that. That is within the business community in Liverpool. When I've seen your events, when I look at people kind of you interact with, that is your positivity and that kind of sense of social purpose and the civics and the spirituality comes through, not just you, but the whole kind of family and the team and the business. And that's so refreshing in a world of hustlers and grinders and startups and VCs and private equity and all that. It is a refreshing thing to be in the company of, mate.
Oh, I really appreciate that. I mean, obviously, hopefully, there's another one on the list, isn't there? That you should be your authentic self. You shouldn't be scared of I'm driven, I'm passionate about being the very best. But I know now, being the very best means all those things we talked about, and how do we want to be remembered? I'd rather be the poorest, most well thought of, rather than the richest and the least thought of, for the right reasons. But I believe you can do good business better. You can be a force of good. You can be a successful business person, and you can be a successful business by doing the right things, by trying to do the right things, but not always getting it right. That's cool as well, because it's progress, not perfection. It's constantly moving forward. And, I really appreciate your time. And, those words mean a lot to me, Andrew, because that's ultimately that drives you on to do more, doesn't it? Do it better, continue to do it better.
I think listening to you talking, when we talked about resilience earlier, that faith and that belief in other people, that seems to be so much.
And our family business.
Yeah.
And our Chris, our Sarah, and our John. Sounds like the Beatles, doesn't it?
What's next? So 30 years in, another 30 years. You've got this amazing team, you've got this amazing business. I love this self-image of you guys as being an agency.
Yeah.
For what you're doing. What do you guys kind of want to do next? Where are you going?
Well, it's growth. I mean, it's making the most of our stature in the industry, which we haven't really commercialized previously. So that's a really important one, because we know we are a lot better than a lot of other companies that are bigger than us, but they aren't as good as us. So it's around that, definitely that growth, that messaging, really getting out there. Hey, it's still about meeting people. It's them seeing the value in the things that we bring. If they don't, they are not aligned with us as a client. I'm talking about a client as well, because it's got to be a two-way street. We've got some really exciting, hopefully, growth projections for the year ahead, because you've got to set the tone regardless of what happens in the global economy. And we've got an exciting announcement that's going to be made over the next couple of weeks over an acquisition that we've made, which is really exciting. Which again, they were a company that were a very good company and done well over the years, but they knew they couldn't be the company that we are. And they actually told us that if we could ever dream of becoming a company in our sector, then you'd be the company that are. And so therefore there's alignment. So, and then we're getting approaches all the time, so that's exciting. And international growth, but UK, Europe, are the focus, even though we're doing some stuff in the US, and we have that ability to do global stuff because we are doing global stuff. All those are hard, again, you have to become the expertise, again, that diversification.
Any other pivots you'd get into if things are running really well? What other business would you like to be in?
I think we talked about on the 30th, definitely the tech, embracing that even further. We've done it, and stuff like that. But that's going to be a huge part of our business. We talked about when we embraced, the graphics, but now it's technology. It's technology that is linked to supporting our customers, able to do things better, more efficiently, more productively, you know, and get better outcomes for them as well. So obviously on the web, on the on demand, other technology stuff that we're able to deliver now, which, you know, when we started, you couldn't even dream, but that's the next step again. You've got to embrace that. And again, I think that links to, you've got to think like an agency as well. Like, you know what I mean? You're not just...
But you're a firm that you're not doing innovation for the sake of it. You are generally innovating to be more competitive, to improve bottom line, to offer new services to people, which is great.
And new kit. There'll always be new kit.
And new kit.
You know, it's constant cycle, isn't it? Sometimes I get a bit tired about that, but... Like,
I'll finish it by asking you your leadership lessons, as if you went back to your 23-year-old self.
Okay.
What's the three things that you'd teach yourself or you wish you knew sooner? What for your 23-year-old self and for young people getting into business themselves? What
I mean, even though I've grown my network now, you know what I mean, I'd do that much earlier on. You know, I'd like, again, touched on surrounding yourself with the right people. You know, you do that earlier on, as with like, some of that was serendipity, you know what I mean, as with like that. So I'd say if I was talking today, I'd like, you know, build that community earlier. I'd get out there, you know, into build those networks and those partners like Novel. Novel, what do you say? Good advertising. And I guess, you know, find the people that I don't necessarily have to find the answers, you know what I mean? I need to be a lot more open. Earlier on, I thought I had to learn it all, you know what I mean? But really, as you develop, you've got to find people that are hopefully going to do a better job than you, have that expertise in that area that just blows you out the water, that's a journey that you're in progress as you grow. Our next phase of growth will require us to bring in, if we're going to get to that next stage, which is, you know, like you said, 100, 150, maybe more, that 20 million, that 25 million, that 30 million. That's gonna require people that have been there and done it and have expertise, whether that's raising finance or whatever else, that I don't necessarily have, or the rest of the team don't have. So that's what I'd do as well. I'd say, go out there and find the people that will give you expert advice for free if possible, you know, or start off with the free and then pay for it some point in the and also like you know, trust your instincts. You know, there are times throughout your business career or, you know, in business, is that, you know, sometimes you question what you're doing, but when you look back, you know, you remind yourself that you didn't have to think. Actually, that was, you were right on point, you know what I mean? So a lot of that question of yourself can be a stumbling block to the next step of the journey, you know. So don't have any self-limiting beliefs as well. You know, you've got to believe that anything is possible. It's only, and I've had that, you know what I mean? And I've grown into that, but it's true, isn't it? You know, it's only when we say something is not possible, it becomes impossible. So that's what I tell myself.
Fantastic. Andy Dwerryhouse, thanks so much for your time today. Where can people find you online? Where can people find Wild Thang online?
Websites? Okay. It's, Wild Thang, wildthang.co.uk. I'm obviously on LinkedIn. Tap into me, like, you know what I mean? I'm, you know, active member of that community, promoting all good things that are about Wild Thang, but also hopefully inspiring others to do things better as well from that point, because I'm really driven by that.
Cheers, Andy.
Cheers.
Take care.